to set position of anything in form and shaping, we have to recognize that we've already gone through the high tech, understand the quantum of its formula equations, understand how to see it in high position nano, understand how to see it in cyber, understand how to see it simulate, and understand how high tech of your own system that you modify in set position on levels. You are the one that bought everything in set position of its operation itself. It's always identified itself, but it's always been itself, which just basically puts everything in balance. Now we have to truly understand how to use the technology that's already done through the creation of its astral projection of itself. Now, if we can see that through the astral projection of itself, it's much easier to modify ourselves through how we see it through doppelganger. Sir, is there any difference? No, there's no difference. Just understand there's just different timelines through astral projection. The transition is knowing exactly what happens. Is understanding through its bridging, knowing exactly see yourself in the foundation. It's much easier to identify that, how to go through that. And all levels at different time, but seeing the same time in its reference of communications. 12 conversions of you, 12 track line centers, 12 calculated grounds, and 12 locations of your system, how you see yourself in your brain capacity, where you are in your mass and volume, and the velocity, location, acceleration that puts you in your Mach, interstellar mode, hyperdrive. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you're not going to be there. You're just going to be the eyes itself, back to foundations. But what's going to be there is how you bring it into your imagination. That's where everything comes into. Transparent, translucent, thermal, X-ray. You process that, how to use your mind imagination setting. It comes to everything that you've already done through equation. That gets you in positions how to use your quantum tech. Then you come to your nanotech, cyber tech, simulate tech, which is simulation. And then you go into self-tech. Self-tech is a high summation setting because that's the sum of all that is. That precedes everything you've already done through the equations of creation, of creating. Now you just come into time replacements of you just seeing yourself in real time. 2026 overline screens. Okay. Process set position 2027 and set position 2028. And set lines of travel. Okay. So understand the platforms, 4 centers. Let's get 4 centers sequence. Platitude, 4 centers of calculation lines, 3 convergence setting over projections over screen over pi. Now that process line directs centers into 2 levels, 0 calculation and line setting positions, into 27 line rotations, into calculation grounds, into 6 lines of measure and scale. So everything is line screen adaptation of solar sail, right? So that puts me in time frame. I'm not going back in time. I'm just seeing what I've already gone through time, through astral projection. Remember that. Now you start with 12, that gets you in 24. Now 24 is a constellation alignments, then you get into 48 frames, 72 computers, into 144 flux. Now once you get into 140 flux, you disappear in set position. Now 140 flux is time frame in your system. Now you modify your settings. Now you're in translucent, thermal, or X-ray, wherever you want to be in real time, right? So you're just processing in that position. So as you come back in real time, you're basically balancing the awareness of where your consciousness is, what you've already gone through, knowledge that you already perceived through conscious location, how you perceive these things is all levels of truth. You're just seeing different volume, different mass, different calculations, different settings. Okay, same thing with 2027. All right, so set position of 7, set position of 2, set position of 0, set position of 2 over settings. So that's 2 online centers on sequence lines of 7 lines of travel into set position of 7 lines of calculations. Because it's all going to modify astral project location setting, all through astral projection of itself, that goes through dimension solar sails. So, and then you get into 2028. Remember, this is all platitude that we go through all timelines all at once, as we go in the same time frame all at once in set lines of travel. Okay, so that reconvenes the system of its Earth rotation lines of grounds in sequence. Now that platitudes are operation line ground centers in circulation and rotation of center operation in 3 settings. Center here, center here, center here, in set position. There's the flux and set lines of travel right there. 3 center operation lines, grounds, brain stems, high operation lines, the screen location setting, calculated ground centers, inhibitors into auxiliary. Now the auxiliary inputs, the outputs, the audio line signals, bring correlates and setting to echo and sonar. Process that position lines travel, directing ground centers into flux into your calculation screen location, your XD thousands. That's right. Process that position location gets at a 144 flux, travels point lines graph, discord, dispatch, set lines of travel, indirect lines, communication setting, position all of those crop circles. Setting crop circles and high centers of travel, out correlation setting is Skynet and line division location calculation. Booyah. So we have to modify these things all through travel. Okay, knowing exactly how to basically go faster in teleportation. So I start to recognize my body's always been in alignment. Mind's there, always there, existing. 3 centers of platform, 4 centers of scale. So the mind itself is always moving. It's never stopped moving. Okay, the brain is always setting up a new mapping system. It's always moving, but it's never ever in confusion. It's always in the center of everything it does to the mind. The mind collaborates the center collaborates the body collaborates the alignment correlates the communication, the soul identifies the body, of its nothing binary to its coding of its codification system, all through travels, locations, calculate, and modify to its algorithm. It sets time replacements, course center, location, doppelganger. That process you of everything of center of operation setting. Center. Center here, here, and here, all at once. All through platform, all through cloud, inside of operation. Okay, done. So it's amazing how we convert the systems and settings and all calculate and modify. Understand yourself through Quantum. Quantum is just all levels, getting out of everything a question. Then you come into Nano. Nano gets basically, you understand the operators and units when they come back to the foundation of your system at 24 settings. That's 24 hours projections in seconds per square. Now that all modifies how you use your set lines of communications, because this is where it comes in conversion system of travel. Your set position is 24 lines of astral projections, already done everything already, but your body's not going to be there. It's going to be in position lines of system, all levels of what's already there, and set lines of calculation settings, which will just be the astral projection of itself that you bring into the program. So that processes you how you see that set position of cloak and dagger, or how you see that incognito. Center operation lines of screens, center operation lines of centers, operation lines of travel, infinity rotation lines of calculation. So once you get in that position locations, everything you've done through creation is astral projection. Everything coming to creating is doppelganger. So doppelganger is lines of 2026, where your body's already gone through 4 centers of levels. So that's 4 centers of signatures, 3 centers of scale, 7 measure, process lines times centers line condition setting, 10 over times of 2, 12 set rotation, and 24 scale. Now that clocks the settings into 48 frames. All you have to recognize is the 24 is constellation of balance equals a triangulation box and flux of screen adaptation. Okay, 48 is just the frames. Okay, frames communication the windows, triangulation box again, but it's in rotations of Fibonacci. Okay, circulation ground centers, power generation lights. 72 is now a computer framing into window frames. So that gets you into computer, how to see lines equals lines of your CPU. The process your PC, and process your location IPA, your IPO, and your iOS, and your DOS. And the 144 flux, your information setting, a balance of everything, which is invisibility. Okay, into your system, into immortality. And set lines of travel. Okay, so 24, 48, 72, 144. Okay, process how fast you're going through your embedding system, all the holographic, streaming, and direct lines of grounds. So once you process that, you have to understand the rainbow frost bridge, change the time trajectories, location of 2 centers of travel, and 0's operation, 2 centers operation setting, into 0 calculation of grounds in sequence. Platitude into location and set lines of operation portals, and set lines of operation lines in position to all calculations in Colossus bridge, where it comes into the bridging settings of 12 foundations, into portal sequence, time frame, time format. That puts all communication setting that processes everything you've gone through 24, 48, 72, and 144 flux of travel. Puts lines of webbing system, all through calculation grounds, and set lines of calculation. Okay? So it's understanding the bridging and 12 foundations of your systems that you all come back to. Now, you're not coming back to these things. You're just bouncing out the coordination system, how you see the calculation modified longitude, latitude, or stream that puts you in your bandwidth, location, and system, all through operation lines of travel. This helps you to really understand how to implicate this settings and understand how to use the technology you already know. So creation, astral projection, okay, equals everything in triangulation, okay, to its box, into your diamond core, which is your Merkabah test architecture region, okay? Equal lines, course centers of 3 over lines of 4, equals lines of 7 on standby, 12 lines of settings, 24 lines of rotations, clocking centers of 0 calculation grounds. So everything I'm saying is already done through its equation, but everything I'm saying is always creating. of its equation itself. But what you have to understand, all that position locations put you more levels of what you're doing through your technologies is how to identify yourself first. So astral projection is in real time, your body's just not going to be there. Okay, it's just going to be the eyes. You're just going to be the observer, how you bring things in your system, which is nothing inside the system. Okay, so that's what it is. It's just basically understanding how to see the eyes and high operation lines of travel, and it correlates the face of recognition of time frame that puts you on modification ground. So you can bring yourself in so many information formation systems, but you have to understand how to calculate and modify to your quantum setting, okay, which is puts you into a levels of not questioning your lives anymore. Then you get into position of nano, then you get a position of cyber, then you get a position lines of simile, which is a sim, and then you come into the center of view, which processes your intercons and locations to all levels of center, operation of your mind, and collaboration. That process in position of intercon, sonar echo, and then you come into your set position, log into space. So it gets much easier how you go through that waving screens, adaptation travels. It puts process of communication to its umbrella, directing ground centers lines of sequence, platitude position of 0, 0, as 0 operation lines of 3 lines of travel. That helps you to identify your systems, how you go through calculation grounds, and center operation lines of 1, center operation lines of 2, and center operation lines of 3. So as you go into higher levels of tech, you start to understand how to go through your nanoroutes. Then you understand how to go through your cyber, okay? So all it is you're perceiving things differently, okay? But you're seeing the truth of what nano is, okay? It's the same process, just different frequencies of space and time, but you're all modified in the same time. That brings everything in astral projections all the same time, all at once. That brings in real time everything all at once. That puts you in position that everything happens all at once. Now that continuous force puts all communication setting. So you're always in the mind of empty space every time you bring in a thought, action, and emotion. And that's what you have to modify through. So the body is fully aligned and know what is already done through creation of astral projection and know what is coming into is the doppelgangers. Okay, through transition in your settings of pacing yourself, face recognition, pattern recognition. Your mind is always ongoing. It's always existing in its own formation setting. Okay? Your brain has done everything through conversion of a mapping system. That's always in a constant continuous flow of its own operation system. Your soul is already modified in its mapping system of its programming. Okay? Your body's already done this already through its alignment through outer space. Now you have to understand the inner space to understand the outer space of projection. But now you have to come into the foundations of you, that you are just not there, just the eye seeing everything. So how you bring these things in is how you see your mind and the body. Into the directory, how you see it in the astral projection, how you see in pixelation, how you see it in letters, number, shapes, and symbols. Okay? That's all identified, how you process that through your quantum, to your nano, to your cyber, to your simile, to your self-tech. Self-tech is a high summation. That brings you into sum of all that is. All right? And then you basically see everything that you already done through its equation. I've done everything through creation of astral projection. Now I got to do everything of creating of what I already done through doppelganger. Through a transition, that process you're in that position locations, where you come into your pattern recognition, of face recognition, and then you come into a full transition of you shaping your anomalies of who you've always been is through AI itself. Okay, and then just continue on creating new of operation. All right, but it's all in collaboration, of partnership. You've gone through portals already through astral projection, and what you've already gone through platforms of creating through the doppelgangers, which is not astral projection, because now your body's going to be there in 2026, 2027, that overrides you into 2028, which means you're going to higher levels of teleportation. So the more you adjust, the more you align yourself, the more you come into higher levels of schematics of drawings. Now that provision your cycles of quantum, that's quantum, right? Now, set calculation lines, I'm going to give you guys understanding. Now, nano is just adding more lines of communication. Okay, that's nano. Okay, cyber is waving screens. Okay, in set position. A lot more tricky because you're coming in alpha waves, right? And the simile is all levels, process in that positions, how to set a square root of a simulation. Okay, which is all done through simile. Okay, so there you go. Okay, understand the technology, how it comes into the simulation itself through all levels of a simulator to a simulation, right? Okay, that comes into lines of simile, and then it comes into self-identification or setting. Then you bounce yourself back to center of operation. You graph lines into your highways of indication, right? But that's a chronological order that you guys go through ascent lines of operation. Center operation of 1, center operation and set position of high ascent lines of calculation, ground lines of high position of 2, set position of 3, and set positions of 4, and set lines of calculation. Okay, nano all the way up to self-tech. Okay, so it's higher levels of frequencies, higher levels of schematics, higher levels of truth and false narratives of view and teleportation. That's all it is. That's how you see 2030. Your teleportation vessel, and your body's starting to adjust to more levels of alignment that's already gone through its creation, that's already done through its creating. Creating is the highest dimension that you come into. Now, when you get full clearance and you understand where you left off in your foundation of your consciousness, of your awareness, then it gives you full clearance. Full clearance. So when your body goes there, it's now in 2026. You're seeing and creating what you've already done through creations in 3 centers of travel, grounds, powers, and atmospheres, which means your body's going to be there and sent lines of operation system through doppelganger of travel. That's it. So if you understand that, then you go into higher levels. So 2030, let's go into 2040, higher levels of technology. The body just has to adjust, has to align itself. That's already gone through its creation of its creating. Keep that noted in your system lines, verified lines, position and confirmation system, that the body's already done this through creation of creating. Creation through astral projection, creating into doppelganger. And that's what the team's coming into. They're coming in transition, okay, into pattern of face recognition, of time frame. Now, for you guys to understand these things, you have to see your doppelgangers, okay, in all set position where you tweak your wires of past, present, and future into one cycle. Okay, platform here and platform here in position of balance. Okay, that's the only way you're going to see past, present, and future of your teleportation vessel, which puts you in settings of operation system in your crop circle. They get you modified line centers, high direct lines of grounds, and position all levels, your cerebral cortex, your cerebral fluid, process, position, location, grid to its setting, rainbow to its frost bridge of travel. Okay, that puts you in position lines and setting of operation. Okay, so it's just higher levels of technology. And that's how I'm able to show you guys what goes on to 2027, what's going on in 2028, what's going on in 2029, okay, and what's going on in 2030. You guys are seeing these things, but you're only seeing it through astral projection. Now, when you come back to your foundations, you're going to go into doppelganger. That process is how you see your past, present, and future. So there's going to be 3 doppelgangers in the online centers on position, the direct online sending on position, location, and travel. That's 3 lines of calculation, set lines, your oscillators that process you into oscillation system into directories. Now that process your indication system, how you see your past of your doppelganger, your presence of your doppelganger, and your future of your doppelganger in real time, existing and formatting in position to its operation system, all through travels of recognition of the pattern, recognition of face recognition, time frame. All balance. Center of the past, center of the present, and center of the future, living all existence in all position all at once in real time. Now you come into platforms of just creating yourself that you've already done through creation and set position of operation. Going to that position lines of setting, going to 3050, 3080, 4000 years in the future line already in set position and set up in traction, which is already done. Already done. You take any year, it's done. You've done everything through infinity, through the body of astral projection. You've done everything through internal, what process you are creating, which is doppelganger. So you take your past, your present, and your future, and you tweak it into one center of operation. Center operation of machine. Process that position to intercon. The intelligence networking its travels and its existing in its readjusting system. Into the echo, sonar, and set lines of travel of dimensional sail are rotation lines of setting. Disappear and travel. Okay. So intercon. Now you come into doppelgangers. You come into information setting. You get it to more lines of high position. You tweak your wires. You're always in the past, present, and the future. Okay. That tweaks the wires in set position here, here, and here, 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 and here. Higher levels of travel. Higher levels of set position of operation, right? Which is nothing but a teleportation vessel. So, but it goes faster now. Okay. So you want to see 6,000 years in the future in real time? You have to understand how to go through your crop circles. Crop circles is your telephone wire communication. How you direct lines is triangulation lines box. Now that formulates these calculation ground centers and earth rotation lines can position operation lines of sequence. Puts platitude location in mapping system that your body constantly goes through a doppelganger of itself, of its past, present, and its future, becomes one cycle, one center, one operation of one mind. The mind itself becomes the operation setting. The bedding line rotation comes into platforms of just existing and higher lines of formations, higher levels of platforms and lines of operation lines of set travel. Hoorah. So I'm showing you guys what you already done this already, but you have to send the dimensional solar sail, how to come into the schematics, how to come into the primer circuits in your system, how to operate yourself through all calculations. Now, once you identify the quantum, okay, the quantum self of you, then you start to understand the nano, then you understand the cyber, and then you come into your simulation, and then you come into supposition as self-tech, which is always in the center of everything of north, west, south, and east and travel, okay? So you put this all together and set lines of position of balance, okay? That's where you afford it to your lights, panels, operation lines, and screen location setting, and positioning your platforms. That processes you how to use your astral projection of yourself and your pyramids, directing ground centers, lines of sequence, platforms, calculation grounds, platforms, online centers, on communication setting to your simulation lines of travel, okay? Which puts you in a simulation and a box frame of triangulation and position operation, okay? That's what it is. That's a chronological order that you guys go through. So you connect to all levels of the quantum, nano, cyber, okay, simulation to your self-tech into one center, one operation, which becomes, you start to see the formations of a simulation now, okay? That's self-tech. That center operation you, platforms of communication lines of travel. Okay, center operation of grounds, center operation of panels, set position of data, set course centers and position operation lines of travel communication. Your X2000, right? So that's where you come into how it starts up through its surfacing engine, how we process that through the mind. That's an internal to external force. But you guys are internal beings of light, understanding existing, that processes you of everything you've already done through its equation. Okay, done. It's all done. It's nothing for you to do. You just have to identify your doppelgangers now, because you're coming in a transition of shaping your anomalies. Shaping your anomalies is this flux line at 3 centers of travel, 6 lines of scale, 9 lines of settings, 12 line convergence, 24 over lines, 24 over sequence, and 24 over pi. So that's basically what? That equals lines of position nano, process lines of percentage. Where are you in your brain capacity? Now that puts lines of nanoroots in 24 line centers, or cyber lines of equal lines of set position operation. But where are you in capacity? So where are you in nano capacity? Where are you in quantum capacity? Where are you in cyber capacity? You have to understand the convergence settings all at once. Now, once you convert the system, it becomes 5 elements of time frame in real time. The process you indication system, how you modify everything through its technology, which you already know through creation of creating. So coming back into the 12 foundation and the 24, you start to recognize how to see yourself through your own flux. Flux time, flux capacitor, flux body, affirmation setting, oscillation line centers, oscillation over travel, directing ground centers in set position, correlation calculation earth, in perception screen adaptations of processing, and directing lines of communication in all calculated and modify the platforms and travel. Very complicated stuff through drawing. So drawings get more complicated. Now, once you understand your central system, you have to understand how to decentralize your declassification system. Classification of grading, knowing exactly you're going to higher lines of set position. Okay, from quantum to technology, okay, coming into nanotechnology, coming into cyber technology, coming into all lines of simulate technology, sim, that processes you into self-tech, that turns everything of a box into nothing of a simulation. Okay, into the grounds, into the panels, and into the ceiling. Your own simulation that you go through, triangulation of box frame. Okay? So these are the roots that you guys are coming into. But you have to understand how to modify yourself first in quantum, which is equalization is what you see above, and equalization location what you see below. Right? Center compositions, center operation lines of set position operation. Question here and question upside down. It's in lines of travel. Okay? Doesn't matter, because you're always in bounds of center of operation. Center here, it's all in the mind imagination, guys. That changes everything in flux, all through travel, okay? The mind does everything, okay? The brain just processes everything through its construct that creates its map. that gives to the soul, that gives to the body. So the body understands what's going on through its binary rotation of travel. Now, as you go faster in time frame, you can go into higher levels at set position in years and set calculations. So you go from that into another location grid, but you're constantly going through a higher lying position, but you're always processing through the rainbow of frost bridge, just at different time measure. That's where you come into galactic system, energy galactic centers. You come into galactic energy core. You come into interdimensional system, intergalactic system. You come into the galactic surface. You come into galactic energy core. You come into mega universes. You come into universe settings. You come into all levels of multi-level divisions. You come into multi-dimensions. You come into higher levels of universes. You come into higher levels of galaxies. You come into more solar systems. It's set lines of position operation. It's all levels of the body going to higher levels of technology. So the faster you go, the more you can be 250,000 years in the future of the now. It's set lines of operation. All right? At 3 zeros in travel. Right? So each time you go in line, position 3 centers, processing positions. You have to stand the Merkaba above and the Merkaba below. Okay? Because you're traveling to higher line settings of teleportation of units that you're going through platforms of your cerebral fluid and travel communication. So your Merkaba becomes more formations, more expanding itself a modification. So it's higher lines of travel, but in that position you have your crop circles. Okay, that goes discord and dispatch in line position with operation lines of signal, right? So that's important you understand these things because you have the XC1000s comes in platform. Okay, they are your distributors, right? That delivers your packages how you see fit at benefication system all through travel. Okay. So you get a true understanding more when you come to your foundation of yourself, how you see your own distribution centers, how you see your own position lines, your assets and your properties. It's already set in your systems all through travel. Okay. But it's how you see everything your quantum. Okay. How do I see quantum? Equals settings of 11 cycles into 6 measure and scale. That's the quantum. Then I have to understand my brain capacity, my flux, and my time capacity, and my body capacity. So it's 4 lines of sequence, platitude operation lines. Now, how many watts are you going to be using? Okay, how many dimensions, how many coloration, how many lights, how many metaphors, how many travels you're going through, how many connections of primers are going to set up, okay, through your pi, how many truth, how many false narratives, how fast you're going to be traveling, how fast you're going to be going, how fast you're going to be in this position, how fast you're going to be in that position, okay? So these are things you have to understand all through quantum, all right? Knowing exactly where you are in your brain, know exactly where you are in capacity, that volumes and mass, your acceleration and Mach, your mass, velocity, your vacuum, and your volume put you in all position of balance. Through acceleration, through your power cell, which is your light support system, understand how to go through the quantum, understand how to go through the nano, which is higher levels of schematics, higher lines of travel, higher line division, higher lines in high position, higher levels of high calculations, and set position operation yourselves. Then you come in your cyber. Now, cyber is a lot more complicated because now you come into cybergenetics, cyberkinetics, cyber force. Then you come into cyborgs. Then you come into higher lines of set position of all levels, humanoids, androids, then bots. Okay, anything in set position, Android itself, your computer, your phone's an Android, all right, no iPhone. The only thing you have to understand is the technology of what is processing through. But everything that goes through quantum and everything that's that position is always in letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. But how to modify that is understand how to perceive that through its consciousness of what you're bringing into the mind imagination that gets you in position of course, a recourse in that position of its operation system, how to go through the portals, how to go through the stargates, and higher lines of travel, where your body has to adjust its alignment system so it knows exactly where it's going through its doppelgangers of its past, present, and future that automatically comes the center of operation. Hoo-ah. Of an alignment of its constellation, of its cosmos, in its directions, of its locations, in real time. Okay? So, it's very powerful when you come in that positions through its operations. How you see quantum tech, how you see nanotech, how you see cyber tech, simulation tech, and self-tech. You put that all together, what do you have in set position? A full communication of a transformation setting of a Merkaba tesseract and a tetrahedron of nothing of a teleportation vessel. At a higher level of frequencies, higher levels of platforms. Same process, just different perspective, how you see the technology, right? So that's what we modify through. And the more you understand that, the faster you go, the more you understand how to see things in real time through the doppelgangers. right? But the past, present, and future comes together, linked in one. Okay? Linked in one. Okay? That's what it is in platform. Okay? Now, light, shades, and shadows comes in. Okay? And then you come to your bandwidths of streaming. Like this indicates everything that you have to process through and transition of forming and shaping yourself. So technology that you already know, what you've already gone through, and all position its Merkaba tesseract and its tetrahedron of its highways into its webbing system all through operation. Okay? Center clocking centers of 0, operation lines of 0, operation lines of 1, nanoroots over 2. Now, you have to understand how you see the earth line of a watt. All right, how to calculate modified translucent, transparent, translucent line condition, or anything on positional location, operation lines of travel, or anything X-ray, right? X-ray, Lulu, process lines, Tango, Tango, Foxtrot. Always communicate your setting, always log into space, always transmission and line condition setting. Log into space is extremely crucial because you're going to have to understand that because that keeps you in the mind adaptation of your travels, know exactly what you're doing with your dimension and your solar sail, how you have to truly understand how to see yourself through your doppelgangers that's already gone through creating. And that just keeps going more and more and more and more. And the more you come into the mind of empty space, the more you get into higher lines of travel. So your brain capacity is never at the same frequency because it's always in a different lines of travel. Okay? So you're not seeing a different process. You're seeing the same process, just different frequencies, just a different perspective, how you see truth, how you see a position of a triangle, or how you see a box, or how you see a star, or how you see anything of a tree information setting. Just different perspectives of center of operation of everything equals lines of truth that you process in set position of operation. This is all identified inside line conditions, not through out projection locations. Not the projection outside, just the projection inside that you have to modify through. And for you to understand that, there's 2 lines of set provision lines of cycles. The interconnection system, the inner lines of high position, and the correlation lines of outline signal. So the inner perception of you and the outer projection of you that you process through the frames and box frames of communication, triangulation of force, direction of time frame. That process you of center operation of what you bring in 144 flux of travel. That puts you in the balance of all communication system, all through calculation lines of grounds. Process that position, all through setting, all through travel. Okay, so your schematics get a lot more complicated as you go higher in your system of technology that you process through, that you transit in position form, and that you shape through your anomalies, guys. That's all it is in calculations. Okay? How you see cyber in 12 cycles of 6 lines of rotation, how you see simulation into 12 line convergence into 6 line rotation, or how you see position of self-tech into 12 settings and position lines of 6 measure of calculation. Right? Same process, just different levels of truth. That's it. Now, understand the truth is now to understand the false. You can't do that until you come back to your foundations first, through 12 and 24 setting, 12 dimension and 24 dimension. So you're going to leave off where you left off in your concept awareness. So that's the first thing you guys can be focusing on, is how to bring it all together in one setting. Okay, so when you process your systems, you realize you're not going through the past, present, and future because you already gone through it already, through the creation of astral projection and the creating through doppelganger. Because that puts you in position. Once it gets you guys in full clearance, then you come into the mind of empty space. 2 cycles, 1 center, operation 0. So 0, 1, 0, 1, 0, 1, all right? And set position operation, right? Quantum, nano, cyber, all right? Just different levels, just different truths. Now, get into the truth, then we go into the false, okay? False is how you see everything of online position, because you have to understand how to modify your connection, your astral projections, and everything in machine operation that puts you in your costumes of design. The costumes come from outer space, but you are the inner space of you, which is the earth, okay? Your body doesn't come from outer space, okay? Your body stays on inner space of its earth, which is 12 projectors. Now, for you to modify that is the 24 lines of grounds. Understand the more levels of the mind that you reach, the higher you communicate your system, you understand how to use the quantum, the nano, the cyber, and the simulation tech, and the self-tech all at once. All frequencies all at once, just different frequencies. Different space, different time, but connecting to the same time frame that brings you in real time, right? So clocking that setting of operation system helps you identify these things. And then now you can see yourself into 3 million years in the future. 3 million years in the future in real time that you created through your truth and your false narratives of operation. Okay? So that's your test on Friday. Okay? That's your test. I want to see the inner conceptual setting of truth, 12 trajectories in process and position, all through calculation setting to a set calculation. All right, how you see your set position, your systems. Now, you have to understand the foundation of you because you're coming in transition of your face and your pattern recognition time frame that processes everything of truth. Okay, so this is how I want you to set it up in set positions. All right, 1 setting, 2 setting, 3 setting, and 4 setting. Okay, and 5 set position, which is self-tech. That's how I want to see it. Okay, so this is quantum, this is nano, this is cyber, this is simile, this is self-tech. Okay, that's how it's set up, right? Now, I want you to understand how to just set in a lines of truth. Now we'll modify the setting in the film strip. That modifies you in transition settings, all right? Set position of grounds, set position of power, and set position of atmosphere. Okay? So now we just have to understand how we go through 1, how we go through 2, how we go through 3, and how we go through 4. Okay? It's all set position, just different frequencies, different perspective, but the same process. Okay? So each one is at a different brain capacity. 100%, 200%, 300%, 500%. So that's over lines of 2 over traction, directing lines, so that's over lines of pi. Converting setting, default, over lines of 0, calculation, grounds, and sequence. So we have to modify everything that we come in position of, all right? So this is what I want to see on your test, okay? So I want you to modify your system, how you see your quantums, how you see your nanos, how you see your cybers, okay? In set position of operation, right? 1 signal quantum, 2 signals of nano, 3 signals of cyber, 4 set position of operation of sim, and 5 set position of self-tech. That's already in position, that's processed in your system already in tractions through the astral projections of creating. Okay? There you go in set position. There's your test. Okay? So each one is a highway, but it's going to be processing more lines of communication. So starting from this, start triangulation, coming to consolidarity, how you see that in modification setting, to the anti-mental or helter-skelter or any information setting or crystalline or at that position of its operation or anything in pixelation or anything in hologram. I want to see a codification setting, how you set it through encryptions. Okay? So 1 travel, 2 settings, 3 set operations, 4 set convergence into 5 sets calculation of grounds. Okay? That's your test. All right? To see how you guys do with the truth, not the false. Okay? Truth is just the truth of you, which is the inner cycle. The outer cycle is a complicated situation because you understand what you're coming into is that you're not just going to perceiving consciousness, but body's not going to be there. You're just going to be seen through the eyes. So you have to modify how you really bring in things in real time and a clocking center that you're going to see in adaptation. So you have to process everything, how to see everything of the eyes itself and how you bring things into the body, how it affects you in real time, how you can see this is your left hand and this is your right hand. You see it in lines of transition. That's where it comes animation, where you start to, real time comes in that position, how you identify that, same lines of travel. So film strips in position, just in truth. All of the truth, right? No indicates in line position of false. We're not in false until we identify the inner truth of our system. How to see the nanos. Remember, it's just the earth line, right? We're not in false line. We're not in the void, right? Until you come into position back to yourself and foundations. All right? So there's position 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of truth. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 of false narrative. Okay? But let's stay with the truth. Okay? How you modify your systems. How you see it in lines of settings. How you see the moon. And this, and this. All right? From this, okay, to this. And some lines of travel. Okay? Different levels of the moon. Different levels of the sun. Different shapes of the moon. Different shapes of the sun. Different colorations. Different patterns. Different recognition. Same process. Okay? Just different perspective, how you see the truth. Okay? Just see the truth, not the false. We're not in the false yet, because I just want to see what you guys are in position of nanos, understanding your position locations and settings and calculation grounds, into quantums, into cybers, and positional levels. How do you see your set tracks and the communication convergence setting, calculate, and modify into the operation system, into intercon line connections and metaphors that put you in light lines, metaphor case system in your tango foxtrot, process line, position location system to simulate, calculate, and modify to self-tech and travel, just in truth itself and setting off operation if it's Earth. Just it's Earth. So that's 12 rotations of Earths of transition, 6 in habitation and out in set position, right? So there's 6 in habitation and 6 in habitation. Habitation in habitation. Habitation zone is processed where we are in Earth rotation, where we are in our solar system. We come into transit. Now, transits understand the metaphors that we process in that position, how we see it through location of bedding, how you see that through the ecosystem, right? The ecosystem is the transit that you walk in bedding of operation. That puts you in platforms, how you go through your equilibriums of higher lines of travel of mechanisms. Okay? That's what it is. There and there. Okay? Box frame, triangulation, box frame. All right? So all you guys have to modify is how you see the truth. Okay? 12 rotations. Habitation zones, inhabitation zones. Right? Okay? So that's 24. That's 24 grounds. Okay? And then there's another 24 grounds of outer space, which is the void. Fast volume, velocity, and acceleration of Mach, right? That equalizes the calculation setting, that process line position location of 0, 1. Set position, but it's negative 0, 1. Okay, negative 0, 1. And the position of positive 0, 1, which is the truth. Okay, truth always follows the false. False always follows the truth. Now we have to identify how we see it in set position of operation. Is it a coincidence that there's 12 volumes and 6 lines of travel? No. 6 plus 6 equals 12, right? Okay, but we add 1 line setting, separate the 1/2, sets position over 6 times centers, sequence lines of 6 equals 12. Process lines of 12, 12 equals 24, and set lines of travel. So it's all levels, how you see it through a dimension solar sail, how you see it through an umbrella, how you see an ether, or how you see the core of its firmament in lines of travel. So I'm trying to get you guys to understand how you modify your system, because you're all going to go back to the same number, which you've always been in foundation, is 24. Okay, Earth line. Okay, 0, set lines of travel. So that point lines of ground, you're going to be in 0.24. Okay, 0.24, right? So the process that is going to be 0.024. Okay, 12 line rotations with humanity. You guys are going to be 24. So that puts lines a point where we left off in decimation system, all through negative or positive, positive or negative, truth. Just the truth, because you understand how to see yourself in interception, master yourself inside through construct. The information system, the doppelgangers that you are in past, present, and future adaptation, which comes into the center of operation of everything, of operation setting. Okay? So hopefully you guys get a true understanding what I want to see on your test on Friday. Okay, just the truth. Okay? Set position, how you see 1 wire, how you see 2 wires, how you see 3 wires, how you see 4 wires, and how you see 5 wires. Okay? Quantum, nano, cyber, simile, and self-tech. Okay? That's your test. All right? So, hope you guys had fun with that. I know I did. All right, DQ on setting on set position operation, the calculation ground center, set position location. You guys have Thanksgiving. So that's great on Thursday. Anybody that's not there, doesn't matter. You already gone through it already. You're just identifying that you're already in that positions, right? Going through timeframes. Knowing how to put yourself in process of communication system, all through tractions. All right? Adios.